Right. Well, thanks everybody for coming out to the, is it 11th? Yeah, no, 10th, October 10th, Forest Stewardship Committee meeting. So we'll call the meeting to order at about 8 minutes after. Everybody's probably had a chance to see the agenda. The first item, of course, is amendments to the agenda. I want to talk about scheduling events, particularly seeing if we can find a time to schedule Matt Peters coming up in the next couple of months. That's the one thing I can think of right now. I think I did I mention in the email, I'm going to go to the select board meeting next week. And the two things that I had in mind to talk to them about. One is just presenting the current membership and sort of structure the forest committee and reminding them that that's part of the approved plan. It's the plan that they've already approved. At this point, with 2 open seats, I guess we have to talk to them about process for filling the 2 seats. So we should add that to the agenda, actually, and specifically agreeing among ourselves about what process we want to recommend with the select board. And the other things would come under recreational trails and grant applications. Those are the things I'm thinking about. So that's all I had for agenda amendments. Anything else from the floor? Okay. In that case, has everybody had a chance to look over the notes from the last meeting? Any comments about the notes? Hearing none. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
We accept the minutes from the last meeting.
Second motion.
So moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next item is public comment. And we have several members that we're actually almost outnumbered by non-committee members tonight. John, did you want to, anything you want to bring up for our attention or?
And not necessarily, like I said earlier, I just, I'm a Wolcott resident and I'm an avid mountain biker and skier. I'm really happy that this is happening. And I kind of just wanted to show my face and, just give my support.
Fantastic. I run a pretty relaxed meeting, so feel free to chime in at any point.
Thank you.
Likewise, David, I see you're online. If there's anything you wanted to bring up at the start of the meeting, you're welcome to come off mute. Otherwise, like I say, open invitation, chime in if, I guess raise your hand so we get your attention or, notice that you're out there and your voice is welcome.
Yeah, I'm like John. I, like participating in a variety of activities, and it's been kind of on my radar to see what's going on with this project. And so just want to hear where we're at in the process. Thanks.
Yeah, fantastic. Glad you're here. All right. And the folks, okay, public comment. Next item is status report from TPL. We don't have any participation from TPL. I haven't really had any communication either. Wouldn't have expected any. There's nothing much going on. I think they've chimed in on some, email. No, I don't think they even did chime in on email about grant proposals. But have you had any recent communication with them?
No.
So
I think they're well, I know we're waiting for all of the documents with the signatures on from the closing. I mean, you've seen all the documents, but they're unsigned. So that would be the next step, is just to fill the files with all those official documents.
Right. And it was an electronic closing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it
they're
was-
all electronically signed.
By escrow in an attorney's office, I guess. He collected all the signatures electronically,
Uh-huh.
just putting all the documents together.
Yeah, okay. Would be interesting to find out if there's any movement with the site remediation on around the telephone pole for the Dell parcel. So I'm gonna put that as a note at the top of my list. Ask TPL.
Gordon, I'd like to find out if they completed the work around that power pole in that little field, because I'd like to do a brush hogging up there when it's done.
Okay, perfect. So that's what I was mumbling to myself about, writing down, so on the same page. Okay, and likewise, nobody from Sinuosity. I haven't heard much official from them. I was actually hoping to talk to them about, I actually asked them if they could make some time to come and walk on the Bourne property. And their response was kind of cool about that, but or rather, I think they ignored that particular request. So we can talk more about what they did say under the topic of trail building and grant applications. I'm not aware of how their work is going. Actually, I know that they were planning to break down, to be doing work. They did say that they would be interested in having, volunteer work days. And I responded asking what days would be best for them, or, did they have flexibility? So still waiting to hear back on that. I was kind of hoping they'd be here tonight to talk about it. But I don't have anything official. So,
Who's the owner of that company?
Mariah, Key, is that it? Brooke Scratchard and Mariah Key.
I know Brooke, I don't.
Yeah, so I think it was Mariah actually sent the email. And I'll bring that up and we can talk it through. So that's trail building, unless anybody else, or the Sinuosity update. So anybody has something.
It seems like they're progressing at a pretty rapid pace. I participated up in the mountain one day. I can't remember the exact date, it's probably 3 weeks ago now. There was, now I think Brooke brought it up before, that there was a section that he thought that it was like someone had made a road trail. And we, in our discussion, we kind of traced part of that back to Rhoda, mowing and brush hogging.
Yeah.
But after that discussion, he brought me up to a part of the trail that he seems to believe that is beyond where Rhoda was servicing. Because there's definitely someone, like there was evidence of someone using leaf blower on the trail. And there appears to be a fresh trail cut off one of the logging trails up there. That goes down like almost like a straight line towards the wetland. So that was his major concern, is that it seems like that there's a recent path for someone is actively maintaining to get to that part. I don't know, the best way for me to describe it is actually just take someone up there. I'm not quite sure exactly how to. I know how to get there by sight, but it's pretty much just in the part behind the school where they were initially working.
Yeah.
Kind of the primary bike trail area, like not quite up to where the edge of the property where the spruce trees are, but kind of over to, I don't know, it's kind of like in the middle. It's hard to describe.
Okay.
But he had some concerns, and I told him that I would communicate it back, see if anybody had any information, or if he has any new information. I was hoping he would be here tonight.
Where does that trail, the road trail, exit the property? Do you know?
It goes through one of the logging trails. So when we went there, we you kind of start going up the hill, and then you kind of move over to what I would call the left.
Yeah.
And you cross the stream, and then there's like a logging trail just on the other side of that that's been mowed. And then a little bit further up, you can see it like a trail going off the side of the logging road and down into the wetland area.
Hmm.
That was the area that he wanted to, talk about maybe blocking it off, but also maybe even, I told him that I would discuss putting a post on front porch about reminding people not to cut their own trails at this point, and that there's active trail construction, and that there are protected areas, and not getting too deep for people, but just remind them there are protected areas that we have to try to avoid when we build trails, and then invite them to the meeting so that we can talk about it in their planning sessions. If you guys are cool, then I'll just do that tomorrow. I'll send you a draft or something. I don't know if you guys want to do that yet, or.
The one thing I'm thinking about is I wonder if, and I'm pretty sure Rhoda had some trails marked up there.
Okay.
And I was up there 3 weeks ago. I think I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
But wasn't, because the last meeting, I thought what he was describing was Rhoda's brush hogging. So this other thing, I'm not sure, I'm not sure about it, but I wonder. Yeah, I guess I don't know if I want, I want to call a lot of attention to it and put somebody on the spot particularly.
Okay.
So it's,
So I wanted to bring it up before I didn't want to take any independent action,
yeah.
but something I'll be willing to do if the need arises.
So it would seem like that Sinuosity should be out there on a daily basis. I'm thinking, and you're the only person I know that has kids at the school. Do you see any sign of them working when are you at the school often enough?
I have seen them working, like their equipment has been moving.
Uh-huh.
We can check with Dennis because he's making them sign in every morning.
Okay.
So because they're visitors on site, and whenever they park there, they have their power tools, and sometimes they bring the dog with them. So they have a little bit of a rough start getting to know the school policy. But once they realize, like, what the needs of the school were, I think it's pretty smooth from that. But I think you heard some about that at the school board meeting, or were you not there?
I wasn't there.
You weren't there. Okay. Yeah, I came up with the school board meeting too, that they kind of just showed up and nobody knew who they were. And it kind of got everybody, kind of a little bit of a tizzy there on the property. So they're all wearing stickers now and signing in at the office when they come in.
Okay.
And I kind of came I worked the next day after the school board meeting, so it was a pretty fresh topic. So I'm just kind of talking to all the crew members and letting them know it was all for the right reasons. It's like, it's not everybody supports the project, but the teachers need to know, the kids need to know, otherwise it just creates.
And if they're parking at the school parking lot, it's as opposed to down at the bottom of the hill.
Exactly. And so there's a lot of back and forth that they would take their breaks in the parking lot at the vehicles, and then there's a bunch of people hanging around the parking lot at the school. So it's just a little bit of a learning the culture of the school,
Yep.
So that was kind of, so that would have been the second, like it was the school board meeting, so it was the third week, I guess, of September. My understanding is that I was in and out because my daughter has soccer practice twice a week. So I've seen their equipment moving, and at one time after practice, the kids went back on the trails a little bit to kind of see what's been happening. So there's progress back there, but he hasn't emailed me, asked me to come back to help, and I've been busy anyway, so. But I saw his current email this week, so I was like, oh, I was gonna email him this week, but it seems like he's not quite ready but he's trying to organize it in one big push, I guess.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like.
Yeah, he asked me if I wanted to do chainsaw work, and I'm like, listen, I can use the chainsaw, but I don't wanna, I'm not on your insurance plan, so sorry.
Makes sense.
I'm like, I'll drag the trees, I'll drag the branches, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I just don't want someone telling me I cut the wrong tree down. That's the only, it's kind of a cold report because it was a couple weeks ago, but that's all I got for it.
well, let's move on to new business. So I added this item, forest management in stand 8. That's the plantation of the white pine plantation. And it came up for me because I walked in there for the first time about a month ago, shortly after our last meeting. And my impression is it's not a healthy stand at this moment. It doesn't look good. I emailed Emily Potter about it, and she basically agrees. So I think my opinion confirmed by Emily is, or my impression, and Emily's opinion is, it would be good to do something in there, at least some like timber stand improvement, whether it's just girdling trees to thin them out or do something. I don't think there's anything in there that would make sense to go after for a harvest per se. But I think we need to like either ask Emily to make a recommendation or ask one of the other consulting foresters to make a recommendation. That's my impression. I want to put that on the floor and see what everybody else what you think about going into do some active management there.
We get a recommendation from one of the foresters, that would be the right way to go.
I think I know where you're coming from.
Whatever work we do in there, it's gonna make a mess. So I don't know, it's gonna come up with a lot of opposition unless we actually took the trees we cut or fell down after girdling and moved them further up on the hill and put them in the pile or something. You can't really commercially chip them, it's not enough. I don't think you could get a chipper and get rid of it. I agree, I don't think there's any saleable lumber in there yet. But I think about at least a third of it should go. That's my opinion. And it's not a really pretty area, but foresters would just, they would just girdle it, probably just girdle it. We could walk away.
Yeah.
That's
Girdling means just cutting everything down.
No, around the tree to kill it.
Oh, okay.
Still
okay.
that's all over its own. So
if you girdle it and let it die and it falls down from the top, if you cut it down, it's gonna fall on a lot of timber and make a lot of wounds on timber that you might want to leave.
Mhm.
So girdling is actually better.
It makes sense, yeah, now that I know what the means. Thank you.
Purpose is to create regeneration.
in this case, just thinning, because the trees are, for white pine, for mature white pine, they're really close. There's a lot of them.
You're gonna find everything in there. You're gonna find trees that have like multiple tops of weevils. And you're gonna find trees in there that have blister rust on the side. And all these should be removed no matter what. And it's the only way that the good looking timber is gonna grow.
So
It's too thick for anything to mature in, 40 years.
it's not just the thing to regenerate, but the thing to create good saw logs for the future.
Yeah, and they will as they grow. Self-seed some of the areas around. And, pine regeneration is it's about one of the only timbers you can get any money for, cutting.
That's where it's just regeneration, go in there and just clear areas. But
Yeah, that's not what we're looking at here. It's not that big.
So smaller parts are. You can select the ones to leave and which ones to.
Dave, not to put you on the spot, but do you think we're gonna have to pay for this, that this is gonna cost us, or are we gonna be able to get somebody to recover something and that we'd be able to break even or make some money on it?
I don't know, I think if Emily, comes up with a good solution, I think I could do quite a bit of it. If it comes to hurdle, it's really no big deal.
Right, and we volunteers could do it.
But if we have to skid stuff away, so it's because it's too ugly, then I don't know, that costs money.
Uh-huh. I don't know that we have to, I don't know if we have to worry about the aesthetics. I think there's plenty of other beautiful places on the property. A few acres that are, you know, have some trees falling in it for a few years. It's probably gonna be all right.
Some advocate the messier the woods is, the better for the wildlife.
There's
It'll look pretty to the human eye, but it's a lot better beneficial for the wildlife. It creates dunes, habitat, escape routes, routes, stuff like that.
So, you know, keep in mind, we're talking about the small area that's essentially in between the school and Leon Whitcomb's, you know, what was Leon's house, Rhoda's house. It's not a whole lot of area. Okay, so,
Be a good practice stand for the new forest. Many volunteers. Get in there and see what we can do.
so shall I take, do I have committee approval to engage Emily and make a plan to do some management activity there?
So I take a formal vote. I
So let's make a motion.
That's part of just administration, right? To just to have Emily give her feedback, because until we get the feedback, there's no real, any additional action, right?
Yeah, she supports the idea of doing something. So at this point, you know, obviously I'm not going to tell her to go ahead until we've talked about it.
Sure.
We've just talked about it. I'm hearing general consensus agreement.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too.
So,
Gordon, let me just add to the process and just say that any kind of forestry management activity, you have to notify the holders of the easement
conservation easement.
in writing.
Okay.
And the more detail you can give in that written notice, along with Emily's recommendations, would make the process a lot easier and go quickly.
Mhm. Okay, fantastic. Thanks.
And
I mean,
I just,
what I envision from here, sorry.
I don't want to constantly be the guy who reminds the group that there is this conservation easement document. It has all these rules in it. But I would encourage all the members of the committee to occasionally look at that document, you know, because it has all these allowed activities and prohibited activities. And it, you know, it's just good to be familiar with that. I don't want to be the guy who sits here and says, no, you can't do that. You got to put this in writing, that kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
So this is just a friendly reminder that we need to keep the easement in mind.
Sure.
Thanks,
Yeah, personally, I don't take it that way. I take it as we've got a subject matter expert who can remind us of the things we need to do. So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But what I see as next steps from here is that I'll talk to Emily, let her know that the committee is aligned that we want to do something. Let's figure out what the plan is, and then we'll come back with the plan. Probably, you know, we can make a formal agreement to go ahead. I don't know that the select board, you know, I guess we have to inform the select board, at least as a courtesy, but probably they should, you know, they should give their blessing to the idea. So all of that, I think, has to fall into place before we say that that's what we want to be doing.
3 years ago, on Rhoda's land use plan, the newest one she did up there, it did call for work on that pine plantation.
Good.
Okay. And Emily said that, you know, doing something whether it's growing, you know, timber stand improvement is already consistent with the plan exactly.
Yeah.
as she's written.
Yes, absolutely.
So. Cool. Next thing is, thinking about recreational trails on the Bourne parcel. And, you know, where to move with that. So, you know, related to that conversation, three of us, four of us went to the ecological protection zone 2 weeks ago, roughly 2 weeks ago. And I'd say the outcomes here's what I got for takeaways or outcomes from that trip. Feel free to chime in. We identified on the ground roughly where the boundaries are. It's a little closer to the top of the cliff than what I thought, and maybe a little bit further away from the bottom of the cliff. And I think, you know, we clarified that it would be difficult and unlikely that somebody would be coming up into that zone from the bottom side of it. So, you know, at this point, what do you guys think in terms of urgency for having any kind of signage or, you know, taking steps to keep people out of it above and beyond what we've done?
Didn't look like anybody was in there recently. But definitely, you know, trails up there. It doesn't look like it's used very heavily. So I don't know. We should have signage just for somebody that happens to stumble up there now that it's owned by the town and people can go up there at their own free will.
Yeah, I was thinking about putting 2 signs down below and 3 up above. It's a sensitive area, and then have an actual sign next to it that explain what was there. But the more I think about it, the more I think by bringing attention to that area, we're going to bring in more traffic than if we just left it alone.
I agree. First of all, I thought the rushing in event that you just mentioned was very successful. I think we did enough rushing in of that trail that goes into the EPZ. It's certainly a deterrent now from somebody running a motorbike or a bicycle through the sensitive. I mean, if they can't figure it out now, something's wrong. But I think what we need to do is keep an eye on that area just to make sure that that deterrent is working. And it, you know, may periodically have to be brushed in again. Maybe it lasts a year or two, maybe it lasts 6 months. I don't know. But yeah, I kind of agree with you, Dave, that when you start putting up signs, draws people's curiosity, and now all of a sudden they want to go into the area to see what's so special about it. And you end up creating more trails into the area that you don't want. So I think you've got enough of a deterrent there now, at least in the short term, to solve the problem.
Makes sense to me.
And also, if we isolate that particular area as a old growth forest potential and just not build any trails into it, you know, it would probably help.
And then the other thing we can do is actually build trails, as it were, or identify trails that go other places.
Right.
And steer some traffic away from it.
Steer it away. Yep.
Which is, you know, to me makes a lot of sense. So I've spent a lot of time walking around in the Bourne parcel at this point, and I would like to see us actively planning a set of trails in that area. And I have a number of ideas about how I'd like to see it unfold. There's a couple of things that the way that I could see this proceeding, there's a lot of ways I could see it. What I would propose is that we have essentially a volunteer project of building a multi-use trail. Very primitive multi-use, but building a trail that is open for hiking and biking essentially. That finds a manageable climb up to the top of the hill and makes its way out to the pond. And so it could be essentially an out and back trail as a let's call it phase 2. If we consider Sinuosity's trail building as phase 1, then this would be a part of a phase 2, or maybe it's all of phase 2. So that's one priority, that I would propose. The other thing that I could see as possibilities are doing some work on the existing roads that are on the north facing slope behind the village. And I don't know if, what you would have in the baseline documentation report. I know from walking out there a couple of weeks ago that I think those roads are, they're erosion prone. There's already some erosion. They're not well constructed in terms of acceptable management practices. There's no water bars. The nature that there's like a berm on the outside of the trail, so it's actually channeling the water into the road, and there is erosion. It doesn't seem to have gotten significantly worse this year, but I think it would be good for us to give them some attention. My first thought with grant applications was that maybe we could get a grant for roadway maintenance and erosion prevention. As I look further into the grants, the one that would be more suited for that is they're recommending like $50,000 as a grant application, and I'm not sure that we're ready to administer a $50,000 grant at this point, or get into the competition for it. The trail building grants that are also available through the state of Vermont, they recommend $15,000 to $30,000, and I think you need a 20% match on the trail building grants and a 50% match on the other one. So that was the other thing, and coming up with a 50% match on a $20,000 to $50,000 grant application doesn't seem feasible for us. But anyway, all of this is coming back to, alongside of a walking, hiking trail out to the pond. And I feel there's need to do some remediation work on the existing roads. And maybe there's other grants that we can look at besides the 2 programs from the state of Vermont.
Are you thinking just the Bourne parcel or the Dell parcel too?
The places I'm looking at are the Bourne parcel. And part of the reason why I'm focusing on that is because it's in what to me seems like the obvious recreation zone. It's in the noisy section. We're up to the top to some degree. Walking up to the pond, you get away from the noise by the time you get out to the pond. You still hear Route 15, but it's not the same as being right behind the village. But that's the area that I'm thinking about. In my mind, that's phase 2 trail building country, so to speak.
Roughly how far is that? Kilometers or miles to the pond?
I think it's oh boy, you know what? I could probably look it up on my GPS tracker, but it's an hour hike the way it is right now. I mean, if there's a good clear trail, it'd be a 40-minute hike.
What way?
Yeah. I don't think it's 2 miles. It might be a little bit more than a mile.
Could be a really nice destination for
Yeah.
like a picnic or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Gordon, on the recreational trail grants that you mentioned and the matching requirement, I can tell you the town of Woodbury, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 years ago now, got one of those grants to build a short trail in their town forest.
Mm-hmm.
And they use the Vermont Youth Conservation Corps to build the trail,
Mhm.
and that group provided the match for the money. So it's a way of getting somebody else to come up with it. It was in-kind match. So they didn't charge us, the town, the full cost
Okay,
to build the trail. And so what was left was in-kind match to meet the needs. So something to think about.
yeah,
Guys, Patrick Pfeiffer is I guess, the director of the trail building unit there. Be a good contact for you.
Patrick Pfeiffer.
Mhm. And then, they bring it, I don't know that they have used big equipment like Sinuosity would. They brought in, for the Woodbury Trail, they brought in 5 or 6 people, with hand tools. And basically just, I don't know, the way they described it is the trail's 4 feet wide and 8 feet tall, like you're walking through the forest with a sheet of plywood. And then that's the area they clear,
Uh-huh.
cutting trees, whatever. Water bars.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And they do follow, I guess it's the federal standards for trail building. Water bars, not going straight up hills, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, and looking to the Vermont, the Vermont website for the grant, there's about 40 pages. For, I did this, y'all don't have to do it all. There's about 40 pages of conditions that come along with these grants, and two or three pages of it are trail building guidelines, which are some things that I've looked at, but yeah, I mean, somebody like Youth Conservation Corps that actually knows all of those things and already does them makes sense in in the grant context. I want to mention another thing that I've been thinking about, which is that I've been riding my bike a lot down at the trails in Calais. And there's a fantastic trail network down there that is, I would recommend anybody and everybody who's interested, go down and take a look. It's interesting. There's a relatively small public network, publicly identified and clearly marked. And there's a number of trails that branch off of it that are also, clearly present. And some of them are marked for winter fat biking and that sort of thing. And so in asking around, it's what I've come to know is that most of them are built by the landowners and used by the landowners, and there's sort of a general vibe of don't map, they're not publicly mapped, but respectful use is welcome. And in my mind, these are perfect exemplars of the kinds of trails that I think would be really appropriate in the terrain of the Bourne parcel. So that's up with it. Point number one is I would strongly encourage committee members and anybody who's interested to go down and check out the Calais trails around Maple Corners. One access point is basically across the street from the fishing access at Curtis Pond. And there's just a small sign, white and blue sign at the trailhead, just across the road. And, you can walk in and follow the trail a mile up to a kiosk on Robinson Hill Road, where there's more information and more trails. So
Primarily mountain bike trails, or do people walk on too?
In riding out there, I have met 3 joggers and 2 bikers. So, I think they get, they get some use by all sorts of people.
Is it like single track I think.
Yeah, 100% single track. There are, the vast trail runs through out there. There's places where, where it crosses the vast trail or goes contiguous with the vast trail. And there's logging roads and the evidence of a sugaring operation that's been decommissioned. So, there's lots of other uses as well. Three joggers, three hikers, and two other bikers that I've met out there. So again, and at some point, those pictures I'd be happy to share. Okay, so they're exemplary trails, and the people who have done most of the trail work, Ram Verma and Randy Allen. And Randy has indicated that he feels like that network is saturated, and he might be interested in doing building trails in other places. One of the things that as a recommendation for Randy Allen, the bridge work that he's done out there is absolutely stunning. There's these hand-built bridges out in the middle of the woods with some of them just big pieces of rock, and some of them wooden with metal fittings that on dry laid rock foundations. Again, it's worth the treasure hunt to go and explore the trails just to try and find the bridges. So I don't know that we could get a grant to build it, to hire these guys to build trails, but that's where the gears are working in my mind. So that's what I'm thinking about. Anybody else have thoughts or ideas? And these are just my ideas. I'm speaking just as one person.
What would be the priority, like the fixing the existing trails that already there, or building a trail up to the pond, or what's your idea for priority? What to do first?
In my view, I think it would be equal priority. I think we want to do any kind of remediation I think there's some priority remediation on the existing roads. And I don't know whether it can be done. I mean, it could all be done by hand, I suppose, but it would take a lot of work. So if I were to sit here and make a plan for it all, I would say actually the first thing would be a relatively hard surface trail up the right of way across the Westover property to that point that would there's sort of a knoll up there, which would be a fantastic place to have like a kiosk, some benches and stuff like that. So if I were making a project plan, I'd probably put that first, and then I would do both the remediation. I'd probably try and have equipment to do the erosion remediation and hand tools to make a trail to the pond. And then I'd be looking at what do we do once we have the sort of a main artery trail to the pond. What other options come after that? What kinds of loops and other potential destinations? I think speaking as a mountain biker, there's an awful lot of really cool stuff up there in terms of the fact that there's a lot of exposed ledges or very thin soil in places where a trail would be going over rocks and would be not a flow trail, would be a technical kind of challenging ride, and or an interesting walk. And again, I would recommend people interested in checking out the trails down in Calais or, some other places as examples.
I've heard about the trails of Cal, but I've never been there. Heard they're quite exceptional. Check that out.
Yeah, I would recommend it.
Yes.
I think Randy might come up and walk up there with us.
I don't know. I had a 20-minute phone conversation with him. He seemed like a really nice guy. He's he's old enough to be retired, but isn't. So I think he might.
No, you can't underestimate how much, physical work these mountain bikers do on to build trails. My son and his buddies, they have like 20 miles of mountain bike trails, Washington State. And they're incredible, just amazing. And it's all hand built. They really look fit.
Randy said he figures he's good for about a mile of trail a year.
Yeah. Sure.
And again, seeing what he's done with the bridges is it's a lot of work that he puts into it. It's a lot of very cool rock work down there.
That always opens my eyes up when I see these articulate bridges out in the middle of nowhere and how they, I don't know if you're familiar with the trail called Tom G's, which is in Morrisville, but there's, it's an old trail that actually isn't used much anymore, but
Since the one from the Mud City.
Mud City,
yeah.
And it's too bad that that went downhill, but it would just always amaze me, all the wood that they had to drag in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I wrote it 2 years ago. It was in kind of rough shape.
Yeah. Yeah, mountain bike trail building is a lot of work. Just ask Hank from Chuck's Bikes. That's where I ride. Skates balls. And I like the old school network thing. There's not a lot of, there's no machine building up there at all. And again, I prefer technical stuff and other people prefer flowy stuff. And I think you need both. So.
I think we're getting we'll have the machine built trails, thanks to what Sinuosity is doing. I'm interested to see how some of their, the ones higher up on the hill, I think they're planning to have some that are more finished and some that are more rough. So it'll be interesting to see what we finally get from that. My communication with Mariah and Brooke, again, the question I put to them was, could you come and walk around the Bourne property with me and start to think about trail building? What I wanted to get from that conversation was kind of a rough order of magnitude of, if we were thinking about applying for grants, how much money should we be looking at for building trails? Their response was that it's probably premature to be thinking about applying for the new grants. The grants are likely to be pretty competitive this year. And that the things that help with the grant application are showing signs of pre-existing community involvement, really having a lot of energy in the project, and not having a repetition of grants going to the same place multiple years in a row, which I don't know that, because these are different grant sources, I don't know if that really applies. And I'm going off from memory here. I'm thinking there was one other key point that they brought up. But it was this, that to take a trail building grant application, there's a lot of pre-work that needs to be done, and that they spent something like 50 hours doing pre-work for the VORAC grant that they already got. So the basic vibe of Mariah's response was, hold on, let's get your existing trails built and then let's talk about more grants. My takeaway from it, my preference, taking that under consideration is I don't want to not work on hand-built trails on Bourne Park. At least something simple. And again, I think the remediation on the erosion remediation is one thing, and marking and having a trail that's clear that we can just walk on. Is something that doesn't need to wait and maybe doesn't necessarily even need grant funding.
Because there is erosion, that's sort of important to remediate that sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
All the storms we have every year, it's only gonna get worse.
So, I guess the question is, should we look around for grants? I think there's other sources of grants besides these two state of Vermont grants, and one of the things to keep in mind, what I've discovered from reading the websites, is that these grants are ultimately funded through federal dollars. So part of the reason why there's a whole book of regulations and rules you have to follow for the grants administration is because it is with federal money. The competition element, I look at it, following up on Mariah's comments. I looked at the 2022 and 2023 recipients are published on the websites. The grants, a portion of the grant, again, coming from federal money, a portion of it is set aside for motorized recreation, a portion for non-motorized, et cetera. And so a big portion of the grant dollars goes to the VAST, goes to VAST for grooming, and it goes to Vermont Association of ATV owners or something. There's a VATA.
VASTA.
VASTA. Yeah. So they got, they've gotten $40,000 each year or something like that. So that does, leave less for kind of trail building that we're looking for. But it leads me to think that those are probably not the right place for us to go.
Sure. Probably jumping a little bit too far ahead. But do we have a structure for managing a budget for the forest committee at this point? Or do we, because we don't really have a treasurer or any kind of accountant in the mix. So I'm wondering if we do start going for grant money, what do you think is the next steps in terms of having infrastructure in place to make sure that that's managed correctly?
I think it's a perfect thing to bring up, actually. We don't have a treasurer, and we would absolutely have to think about how to administer the grant funds. So
I know it's not really on the agenda this week, but I just know if the town had a pre-existing structure that they like to use with committee work or not.
yeah. I don't know, and I would be more surprised if the town does than if it doesn't. So, and that's frankly, it's a perfect thing to bring up, right? I'll add it to, and I will take the action to. Well, what's the action at this point? I mean, at this point, I'm talking a lot. Because I've been thinking about it a lot, and you guys are all sitting here listening to me. So I'm happy to open it up for other discussion and other ideas.
Got it.
And
we do it a lot of times. They'll say that. I just because even with the pre-approved funds that we had from the previous budget session, I knew we had money in there for mailings and other outreach things. I don't know if we've used much of that. I think this last calendar year, I don't know if
I don't think we used any of it, actually. I think we had funds available.
And I'm kind of in that school of thought of you use it or lose it when it comes to budgets. It's not that we need to make up, you know, projects to spend our budget before town meeting. But I have a feeling that others might have that perspective too, that if we're seeking out additional funds, or we have to use the funds that we've been authorized to use. So there's probably a larger discussion there in terms of, you know, just a simple process for that, because I wouldn't even know who would, I mean, I'm sure all the work would go through Belinda. Ultimately, she seems to be the administrator of most things monetary in the town. But as we start making spends and stuff, like taking invoices and, you know, who has the authority to sign contracts and that kind of stuff, I just don't. I'm probably thinking too far ahead at this point.
No, actually, I think it's exactly right, and I think, you know, it's good in pushing the idea of which applying for grants, et cetera, exactly so we can surface these kinds of issues. And you know, I don't know that what I'm thinking about is that we should probably come up with, we should surface issues as much as possible. And I think about what the questions are that we're going to have to address. I'm going to assume that some of them have probably come up within our little town government along the way, but probably not all the kinds of things that we're going to raise. I mean, the town has got more property now than it had a decade ago, and I think probably ever before. You know, mindful of at least one parcel that was acquired through because of taxes, you know, unpaid back taxes. And there's the FEMA buyouts, there's the town forest. You know, we've never had a town forest. The town obviously spends money, you know, for the fire department and the road crew and stuff like that. So they obviously have a process for managing disbursements and you know, vendor contracts and that sort of thing. The VORAC grant is primarily administered by TPL, right? The grant was it was granted to TPL in the town of Wolcott, but with TPL as the administrators. So you're absolutely right. We're going to need to have some kind of you know, intellectual capital, some kind of infrastructure.
You'll just stop by the office and Belinda's here.
Yeah, there's also Michelle, she does a lot of grant writing for different things for the town. She's doing like a arts program for senior citizens, and you know, I kind of got sucked in on that committee, and garden committee, there's always money for that. And somebody in the office is administering those grants, writing them, administering them. Yeah.
And the management from the TPL said that they secured for us as well. So
Yeah.
I'm sure they're managing that, but it's like.
Well, no, actually, so as part of the overall closing, the escrow disbursements, the town of Wolcott got a check, I guess, got $37,000. And Belinda asked me, you know, what to do with this. Her thought was, the way she put the question to me is how much of this do you want to put into a CD and how much of it do you want to keep in cash? And I responded on the spot to say put 30,000 in CD and keep 7,000 available. And so that is money that we have to think about how to use. Roger, I think your point's exactly spot on. We should figure out a structure for keeping track of things and you know, knowing obviously we're not going to spend it on something that we don't decide to spend it on, and I think the select board has to be informed, if not you know, actually giving their blessing before anybody cuts a check. I haven't even investigated what the process would be like with Belinda.
So I'd be happy to just sit down with Belinda and just chop it up a little bit and just so whatever plugs into the town's accounting, and if there's anything we don't have to rebuild.
Exactly.
It's just a lot easier, for everybody in this big, governmental family. The select board and associated committees, make sure we're all, the books line up and are easy to keep track of. We don't want to overwork it, we don't want to overthink it. We want to make sure that this townsfolk, the citizens can review it at budget time and have a clear idea of how that money was spent. And also just kind of celebrate the fact that not only is the town funded or the town forest funded in terms of purchase, but if we're successful in obtaining funds to keep it running. It seems in this day and age, everybody loves, to celebrate not having to be the one who's responsible for raising taxes.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, okay. I don't know what her schedule's like, but I'll drop a friendly email and see. I'll include you on it and see if there's a moment we can catch her for like 15 or 20 minutes. To kind of see what the preferred process is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we should find out what other committees have budgets and are spending money. And what else the town does to maintain assets. I suppose the cemetery committee.
Right. They all give the report for the town report. So you probably just look at the last year's report and we'll have a whole list. Anybody who has a budget report.
Yeah, true that. And that was the other thing that I wanted to put as an agenda amendment, which is that Michelle has asked, not for the next select board meeting, but the following one, if we would present our budget, our budget ask to the select board.
At the next select board?
Yeah, not next week, but 3 weeks from now.
Oh my goodness. All right. All right.
Put that on the agenda. That said, the budget that we had from last year, we put in a budget request, I think, for $3,500, and we haven't actually spent anything. So
You probably have to spend something for the celebration, right, in the spring. Whatever you don't plan to do there, might be some cost.
TPO saying that they had a fund for that, if I remember correctly.
Right, they did, you're right.
They just want some lead time, so we gave them a tentative mid-July, if I recall correctly. So they could start just getting their VIPs lined up.
And actually, if I remember right, we were thinking to have it be towards the end of the summer when, so Sinuosity's got, I think, until September 1st to spend all of the VORIC money. So,
I thought it was the beginning of August. Misunderstood. They know better than I do. I just, my recall.
I think they're the same.
But yeah, I was thinking that it was August because that was the day they were actually operating with like an IPO date.
Which is roughly the same thing. I mean, Sinuosity should be close to finished at that point. Or else they're filing for extensions, I suppose.
Kate Warner's saying she wanted to have it sometime midsummer celebration, so.
We'll follow up on party planning.
Yeah.
That's always like the drawback of when I speak. I can't take notes and think and speak at the same time. So I have to recording. Fill in all the blanks for that whole last 15 minutes or so. Sorry.
Okay.
That's my little side there.
Benefit of Zoom right now is that it's giving us that recording, I guess. So, we're basically on the topic and then find my agenda.
We were discussing trail building, kind of overlapping grant applications on the agenda.
Yeah.
Then
So, so, I mean, at this point, I've been putting my ideas out there with respect to, things I'd like to see. Again, I want to do this from the perspective of one voice, or maybe rather than necessarily being the chairman driving this is what the committee should do. So what, you know, any other ideas or agreement, alignment on direction, different opinions?
I just want to say, I think that your vision makes a lot of sense. I think you have a lot of experience in the forest. You've taken a lot of time to like lay out your kind of like, when you laid out your priorities, that all made sense to me in terms of the connector path through the right of way, the existing trail maintenance to prevent any more extensive damage, and then that kind of like, kind of next step phase 2 trail to the pond. I think they're great ideas. In my, just to share my headspace, it's been less in the forest and more in kind of the administrative realm. So the big thing was just like, a lot of questions of like, if we keep doing, the funding, like I just talked about, how are we going to keep track of it and make sure that it's being accounted for. The next thing was just, I know that at the last meeting, Kate brought up the need for the website. I just wanted to echo that I heard that. And I saw that your request was for the volunteer page as well on the website.
Yeah, right.
As of right now, as we were kind of like leaving, I don't know if it was exactly where the discussion previously, there had been a request from, so it didn't really come from the committee to hold off on actively advertising the trails like to the public until some of the trail construction was complete. I just wanted to make sure that, because, I just want to make sure that the committee echoed that sentiment, or if we wanted to move forward on launching the website at a sooner date to just make sure we have consensus on that, so that, when we engage Bradley, we have a clear idea of when we think the ideal launch date for that would be. So that would be something I would want to bring up for discussion. I know it's not as exciting as trail building. But just as a quick little thing, do we want to echo Brooke and the Sinuosity team's request to not have people come into the spot yet, or do we want to start doing more invitation in terms of bringing people into the forest? Because I know my friends have been asking about it too. They're like, well, can we go back there? And I'm like, well, technically you can go back there now, but I think they're waiting for trail maps and signs and things like that. So.
We could still have the guided walks occasionally. I think people, that way they can kind of get some familiarity with the trails without just sort of getting lost out there.
Sure, it's easy to wander on the trail that isn't necessarily going to be part of the network at some point, right?
Yeah. And maybe have just a blurb saying, trail building's in progress and we're planning on opening the trails next summer, and thanks for your patience, that kind of thing. And say we might have some guided walks, it's, different times of the year, and that would be a great way to get out there until the trails are officially open. But we really, we can't, people are allowed to go up there if they want to go up there. If you want to go with self-navigate, might want to do that.
Yeah. My inclination is that it would be better to have the website up and post, keep a current status.
The status report.
Yeah. I would rather be more transparent than less. And the only drawback I see to transparency is how much of Bradley's time is it going to take, and is he getting adequately compensated for it? And do we have a budget to compensate him for keeping the website up to date?
The last time I spoke with him about it, which was in the spring, was that at that time he was like, this point, he's like, he said there's not a significant amount of work to necessitate billing at this point. I'm sure there's a point where that will change.
Yeah. Keep going. One of the things I'm going to do is go look up our budget request from last year.
Yeah.
Because I think it had $500 or $1,000 for website.
Right, but I think that they struck that out. I think we asked for like 3,500, and then they struck out that line item because they said that the town had already paid for the web development. And then Linda was kind of going down the path, if you can recall, she went down the path of she wanted to see if she could just fold that into the town website budget. And I think that's where Bradley was working from, is that he hadn't exceeded that contracted amount or earmarked amount or whatever, however you want to categorize it.
Yeah. That jives with my memory. I do have our budget request in front of us, but I don't have what was approved. We asked for $500, so if they cut that out.
Got it. I started doing some wordsmithing just based on taking excerpts from the stewardship plan. I used the North Branch Center as kind of like a guide. I'm not trying to plagiarize them per se, but I just want to, because they have a slightly different structure on the back end of everything. Yeah. But I just wanted the vibe, more than anything else, like the warm, welcoming, family-friendly, community-centered, wildlife focus, like conservation focus, with that element of recreation in there as well. So I'm starting to use some of those elements and starting to like wordsmith a little bit of it to try and work on the vibe a little bit. So I do have some blurbs kind of under construction. Just wanted to let you guys know that if anyone else wants to contribute, you're more than welcome. It's a big task. But if you do want to do it, just let me know so that we can work together and not be redundant in that effort. But my vision over the next couple of months is to start populating that. And if we want to do the main pages, like the status update page, like some of the other things where we've kind of like had to plug in for, calendar, we had to plug in for some other things, which are kind of already in place. Maybe we'll look at how we can activate those without, too much trouble to make sure there's a workflow to keep them up to date. So if we're going to activate the calendar plugin, we just want to make sure like every quarter there's something on the calendar.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to kind of keep it live and keep people coming back. And then we can start, doing subtle things like, having people sign up for notifications if there's a new event, and those kinds of things that will eventually drive usage. Another thing I noticed on their webpage too was they have a lot of like donation and fundraising and things that have come up before and started creating it. And that's kind of what got me back to like, well, if we do collect donations and stuff, how do we account for it? With transparency. We've already talked about that. So there was a layer of that, like how much do we even want to go down that rabbit hole again anyway? So I've been kind of like putting those thoughts, kind of pinning them to the board off to the side. We'll use some of those ideas later. But all right, I think I have a good idea where I want to go. I'm kind of thinking out loud, so I apologize for taking all of your time. But I'm hoping to stir the pot if there are any ideas in this process to just kind of throw it out there, let you know that it is actively being worked on. And if you want to participate at a higher level, feel free to, like I said, I appreciate it and welcome any help. But at the same time, we'll get time to do it.
That's good. I mean, I feel like what's alive in me right now is I'm going to make a comment on process, which is that I'm feeling the tension between necessity of open meeting, lots of state of Vermont, and I think there actually have been more emphasized with something in the last legislature, something that came up on a website that I was looking at. I mean, frankly, honestly, I'm uncomfortable sitting in a big room with all of us spaced out and trying to keep to a strict agenda about, the things that we're supposed to talk about. I'm puzzled by this, and it's in contrast to my day-to-day life and, work meetings, which, again, I think the difference is that, people are well, all on a computer screen, but, with a very focused agenda and the regular meetings versus these meetings, which are once a month. And, in this sort of fishbowl environment. I feel like it was 2 years ago almost, when we were working on the stewardship plan and the details of the stewardship plan, and we had a team of like 6 of us that was, and we're meeting in this room, but all sitting around one table and kind of cranking through things. It felt like it was a good environment for these kinds of discussions of brainstorming, which brought up a lot of content that we could get through and surface things where we needed to make decisions, which we could then take to a decision-making process of the whole group as a proposal. And, people could comment and basically vote it up or vote it down. So, this is, at some level, I feel like this is gosh, as the chairperson, I have this all together. And I'm just going to be transparent with you guys. I'm feeling uncomfortable or awkward with this. I like the, sort of the popcorn of bringing up these concerns and things that we need to work on.
But doing it at the public meeting may not be the best use of everyone's time and attention. I got it.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. And yet, I don't know how to do it because it is, we're a public body. We kind of have to do it in a public meeting. So, I don't know if there's an answer. Maybe we just deal with the awkwardness.
And for me, sometimes it's like the only opportunity we have to have everyone in the room. And if there's a chance, or if someone is working on something to catch that information. And plus we're kind of in this process of restructuring and kind of like landing into a more concentrated role onto a smaller committee. With big ambitions of what we want to accomplish. I just want to make sure that we're using our time if we have it anyway. But yeah, I think maybe we can be less rambly, I guess. I'll try to be less rambly. Sorry.
I kind of enjoy the, just getting out there and doing stuff like the invasive species and brushing the trail and, ideas come up and conversation flows, and that's great for me. I don't think I'd be on this committee if we didn't have that kind of boots on the ground thing once in a while.
Okay, so what I'm getting actually is that probably what a good way for us to work going forward is people who have individual interests or mutual interests should work on them outside of our regular committee meetings and bring forward some results and proposals. I guess to some degree of modeling that, I have all these ideas in my mind about trail building. We can't hash out all of those details in a 2-hour meeting once a month. I think where that leaves us is a couple of things. I plan to go to the select board meeting next week to talk to them about our structure. I guess we could there's a couple of ways we could do this. One is I could come up with my proposal for what our structure should be to fill the 2 empty seats. Thinking about financial governance, or we could actually empower Roger to develop a proposal for financial governance if you're interested.
Sure, I'll take it on. I'm,
talking about that.
I think just looking around the room, probably the most interested. It's okay. Yeah, I can commit to that.
Mhm.
And, like I said, it's like, you know, without rehashing, I think I have an idea of how I want to proceed in terms of discovery. And I don't really want to reinvent the wheel. I just want to
Yeah.
have it down so we are all aware of what the process is.
If you want to brainstorm and bounce ideas around, you know, I'm happy to get together for a conversation. And obviously not to exclude anybody else who would like to.
Kind of always thought it was a mistake to worry about the money till after you had a project and knew its benefits and how you were going to do it, and then make a proposal to the people that are going to outlay this money.
Mhm.
So I don't know if we really need to worry too much about spending money until we have something we really agree on spending it.
Sure. I think this is really just the structure of like, you know, it's easy to go say, I want to go set up a bank account when there's already a bank. You know, this is the bank building part. You know, this is the part where if we do bring grants in for projects, what's the possible,
And Joe's father and I kind of agree that the easier you make it to spend money, the more you spend.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm all in favor of a trail across that hillside of Orange because two reasons. Number one, it's a very beautiful spot. And below the trail that we walked out to the pond, below there's a series of ravines and just gorgeous. You know, and it's the perfect spot to show people if we can find a way to get them up on the hill. So, and like you say, I think it's important that we do fix up some of those water rights. And I don't think it's a big project, some of those water rights.
Mhm.
And I think it's doable.
Mhm.
I'm all for
A
that.
few people with pick and shovels kind of doable, or
Yeah,
you know.
could be, sure.
Mhm.
And you know, we've got Jim Ryan and the guy who sugars with Jim Pease. They're both retired from the state government, and they're both really good at applying for grants, and they know the ins and outs of state government and how you do things.
Mhm.
And they could be real assets to us when we come around to, you know, try to build a trail or get a grant to build a trail.
Hmm. Hadn't thought of that, but because Jim Ryan may be going back into state government, if he gets elected. Yeah, good resources. Okay, so what's a good use of our time from here? Yeah, potential funding from what, David brought up this item about the Fish and Wildlife Habitat Stamp Program. I'm not clear how to plug that into any of our other objectives at this moment. See any way to talk about that. Volunteer workday and corridor clearing. Again, I wish Brooke and Ryan had responded to my email, or so we're here to talk about it. I think since they're not, I think, you know, if they want to propose a date for people to come and volunteer, and we can announce it on Front Porch Forum, you know, what else can we do? I think that's, you know, and I know there's plenty of people that are interested to get out and help. I think they should get a response if we just, you know, announce it on FBF. We just need to get a date. That's the end of, the list of things on the agenda. Have we talked enough?
I checked on the bridge repair.
Oh, yeah.
The bridge repair is excellent. They actually use rebar and tied the rocks below the crevice. And they use rebar that they drilled and epoxied into the concrete. And they connected it with poured concrete. And it will withstand a lot of water. And on the other side where it washed out, they put concrete in there and filled the hole, which was a mistake. But anyway, it was passable. But their repair on that abutment where it's starting to wash out is excellent. They did a good job.
That's fantastic.
And that's Rhoda paid for.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think that Rhoda had COVID just recently, but I think I'm going to continue to invite her to come to the meetings.
100%.
She might even be a good member.
Yeah.
It'd be awesome if she would join.
Yeah.
The other thing is, the gent that was the head game warden for the state of Vermont, Ethan Batchelder, is now retired and lives in Wolcott. So maybe he'd be interested in coming into a couple of our meetings and see what's going on, because he's got a lot of history and a lot of information he can pass around. So I was going to invite him. So, Jack, do you need something in writing from me before I do any brush hogging up around where the power pole was? I'm not going to cut any trees. I'm just going to do a little brush hogging.
Trail maintenance, right? Yeah, I don't think so. No. Just regular maintenance. Just like
Eventually,
brush hogging the fields, you know. That's just normal annual upkeep.
eventually we'd like to do a little apple tree pruning up there. Not this year, but maybe early spring or something like that. We'll pass it around and we'll talk to Emily.
Here's a question that Sinuosity is going to have the trails that go over to the fields on this side, right? Well,
Yeah.
so you'll cross that bridge to get to them. So right now there's a gate across there, right?
Mhm.
It's unlocked. There's no lock on it.
There's no lock on it. So will the gate stay there? People will just unlock it if they want to hike that trail, or is the gate going to disappear? I'm just curious.
That's a really good question. Let's put this on the agenda for the next meeting. Deciding, I think the topic is,
You don't want people
how to-
driving cars.
how to relate to that bridge altogether.
Yeah,
That might be something we would need to spend money on, actually, is redoing the gate so as to have pedestrian access.
yeah, maybe something that keeps cars from going across, but allows people to walk through, or, you know.
Yeah. Related to that, there was a gentleman who came to one of our very early meetings with the suggestion that we might want to put a roof on the bridge for the longevity of it. Is that something that matters? Looking at you, I know you
Covered
have
bridge?
experience with
Another Vermont.
covered bridge maintenance.
I don't know.
It's expensive.
Right now it doesn't. I don't know.
It's just for us.
The bridge is gonna last as long as any one of us here. So I don't know.
I mean, it's a wooden, it's pressure treated lumber on the surface, right?
Yes. More than anything, a little maintenance, a little upkeep on that pressure treated lumber might do more good than anything.
What do you do for upkeep on it?
I'm sure there are products you could put on it. Probably even ones that are not harmful to the environment that would help, preserve it. I'm sure there are.
Is that something you could look into?
Yeah, sure.
That'd be awesome.
I know some of the covered bridges we've built in the past, they have preservatives, they have fire retardant chemicals, all kinds of things are put on some of these state of Vermont covered bridges. So let me just find out what's out there and what might be a good solution to it.
That would be awesome.
Sure.
Yeah. So let's make sure that next meeting, let's discuss access across the bridge, making a plan for it. The concerns are we obviously you know, I think it's obvious we want to prevent vehicular traffic and promote foot traffic. And the gateway that we've got doesn't do that. I mean, it manages number one right now, but it doesn't, it's awkward for bicycles, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And awkward for anybody who doesn't want to climb over it. So that's, I guess we want to entertain options, you know, brainstorm options for things we could do and come up with, you know, next steps for planning around it. For next meeting, I will put more thought into a proposal for phase 2 trails on the Bourne parcel. And Dave, maybe if you're willing, we could get together and talk about and put some thought into that erosion remediation. You know, what would be reasonable and feasible for us to do? Maybe we can come up with like a, you know, low, medium, and high kind of set of options.
It's not, I mean, we can do things by hand up there, but we can't put any equipment up there until the Westover property is closed.
Yeah, which
So-
which should be coming right up. Actually, I'm asking about the Westover property. I take that actually. I ask her most every month. The latest status I got was that it's in some kind of negotiation with the state because normally in a FEMA buyout, you know, sugaring operation would not be allowed. Or you know, there's something, it's awkward having an existing sugaring operation.
It sounds like the sugar guy that's lease will still have 2 more years to go.
Yeah, so I'll ask her. You know, from walking around out there, I mean, I don't see why we can't coexist with the sugaring operation. There is the issue that you know, you're supposed to take down the buildings when it's a FEMA buyout, and its collection tank is on the Westover property, and you know, I hope that doesn't become an obstacle. I'm not a fan of having blue tubing around, you know, running through the woods, and I think that particular location has got fantastic recreation opportunities. Having trails that start in one end and go up and come down on the other end, and you know, 2 ends on the rail trail is you know, the amount of fun you can have in a place like that is amazing. And it's easier without the sugaring operation, but there's no reason why it can't coexist. And
At least there's no leases.
so
Gordon, there, one other funding source comes to mind, I may be wrong about this, for the maintenance of woods roads. There's the USDA, it's called the Natural Resources Conservation Service, NRCS. I know they provide funding for, you know, doing things like water bars and, you know, erosion control on forest roads. Where I'm cloudy is they may only fund private property owners. I'm not sure on that. I don't know if they provide grant funds to, you know, towns or not. And I know they have an office in Morrisville. I recall. It's the NRCS.
yeah, that rings a bell.
They also, you know, they provide money for things like patch cuts. You know, things of that nature that people want to do on their property. But I'm not clear as whether it's only for private property owners or not.
Yeah,
But
definitely seems like it's something worth investigating.
worth checking.
Yeah. Yeah, it would seem to me there's got to be people who would be interested in funding erosion remediation work. That
Yeah.
seems like fits right in with so many people's objectives. So. Cool. Anything else anybody wants to talk about?
I know, Rick Dyer used to be the county forester. Then he took over a program that supplied money for wood roads. And it wasn't to build wood roads, it was to fix wood roads that had been screwed up.
Yeah.
And that's
Exactly what we need, right?
They were the people that got the money.
Uh-huh.
And I think he's since found to work for Audubon, not sure. But he could give us some input on that as far as, what he thought about what the government could do about fixing logging. Got that, and we've also got the Gates Farm Road that needs fixing too. They both might come under that section. And I could almost talk to them, I think. I could try.
Anything you want to volunteer to do, I'm 100% behind it. So in my mind, we need a list of these kinds of things that we have as ongoing projects. So we can come to these meetings and have a list to run through and see which things we're going to prioritize and which things really would need attention from the committee. To some degree, this also implies that we delegate some authority to people to actually go out and be doing stuff with the things, and some of those things are going to cost money. So that's why I think Roger's topic about figuring out our sort of financial structure, financial governance structure is really timely. Dave, I know we've talked about the Gates Farm Road in the past, and someone make sure to put that on my page of little things that I'm going to have to check off here. But well, I'll just put this out there as well. I spent half an hour this afternoon going through our Google Drive, trying to organize stuff, because at one point I did have this list of sort of activities that we need to get through with making a stewardship plan, stuff like that. So, I'd like us to be more organized. I haven't pulled it together myself, but I'm working on it here. So that's I'll just put that out there as an intention.
More than happy to help you with that. It's my wheelhouse.
Okay, well, good. So between now and our next meeting will be second week in November. There's a possibility I might not be in town. If that comes to pass, then hopefully with a smaller group, we can arrange another time when we come together. But between now and then, I'm going to work on this list. If you're willing, Roger.
Yeah, let's talk aging and see other for a few minutes. Like I said, I'll flesh out a basic proposal for, just keep track of the funding. So they know that we know their method.
Yeah.
Really, as far as I want to go with that. I want to reinvent their wheel.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure there's some compliance things that they know about that would be good for us to know about.
Yeah, keeping all the receipts and everything.
Yeah. Cool. Right. Anything else? let's wrap it up. Motion to adjourn, all those in favor?
All right.
All those opposed? Guess we're done.
Joe. Joe, how many people have signed up for your event?
We got about a dozen so far.
Joe, I'm signing up for your event. Sorry, I meant to respond and I forgot. I'll send you an email, just.
Linda?
I am, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I work with her traps.
Oh, yeah. What's your name? Kate Garvey.
Yeah, I haven't seen her.
Kids, so I'm never out, obviously, it seems like they have to want it. It feels like I'm dragging them.
She had a lot of friends up there.
Because they were not so long.
It's been a long time.
She's at UVAC now, right?
Yeah, she's been there for a while.
Yeah, she likes it there.
Yeah, she loves it, yeah.
I should just stop in there and say hi to her.
Yeah, oh, yeah. She's there Wednesday through.
So the two ladies that were on that forest walk with us.
What was her name again?
Kate.